So once the meeting goes, I need to bring that up and
Yes.
give it to
Yes.
We're not too bad. How are you?
Yes.
Yeah. Settle. She told me to do it. Yeah, no, it's just. I'm not. No, she was. I'm not.
Snacks, so nobody has low blood sugar.
All right. No, I'm good right now.
I've got done. Okay.
I'll survive. So anyway, no, it's just some idea. Yeah, but
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand and recite the flag salute with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, Father, we come before you and thank you for this time to meet together. Lord, we ask that you give us all grace, give us mercy, give us wisdom in the decisions that are to be made. Help everything that we say and do, that we bring honor and glory to you. These things we pray in Christ's name.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Lori Cope. I'm an attorney with the Kansas Association of School Boards, and I will be acting as the chair for this public hearing. I would like to take a moment and introduce the Board of Education, Board President Leslie Scobie, Board Vice President Kathy Lippert, and Board members Anissa Bloom, I apologize. Bill Busey, Stan Kine, Kent Saylor, and Jim Scobie. I'd also like to introduce the Superintendent, Todd Evans. The purpose of this meeting is for the Board of Education to hear the rationale behind the proposed closure of Wetmore Academic Center, which includes Wetmore Elementary School number 0413 and Wetmore High School number 0414, grades pre-K to 12. Any testimony as to the advisability of the proposed closing. Per state law, a Board of Education, by adoption of a resolution by a majority vote, may close a school building at any time if the board determines the building should be closed to improve the school system of the district. However, prior to adopting any such resolution, a hearing must be called and held on the proposal. Notice of the hearing must be published at least once each week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation in the school district. Notice of this hearing was published in the Sabetha Herald on Wednesday, January 11th, 2023, and Wednesday, January 18th, 2023, as required by state statutes. As outlined in the published notice, the proposal to close the Wetmore Academic Center, which includes Wetmore Elementary School number 0413 and Wetmore High School number 0414, grades pre-K through 12, for the following reasons. Due to the continued declining enrollment, budgetary considerations, and the need to recruit and retain quality staff, closure of the Wetmore Academic Center is necessary to allow for additional educational opportunities for students a more efficient use of resources, and to save district funds. At this time, Mr. Evans will provide information in support of the closure of Wetmore Academic Center.
Thank you, Lori. Before we get to the rationale, I do have some financial information that I want to share. This was a result of a conversation that I had with Annalisa No, and I want to make sure that the board is familiar with the information and is aware of the information and how that impacts some of the information that we've shared about campuses and the district as a whole. First off, I want to talk a little bit about some of the terms that we use all the time in finance with education. FTE stands for full-time equivalency, and full-time equivalency is different than headcount. Full-time equivalency is either a full-time student or a percentage of a student based on how many services that student receives in a school. At this time, preschool students attend school half-time. The state of Kansas funds us for half a student for those students. And so for full-time equivalency, they count as a 0.5 student. FTE, we talk about unweighted FTE and we talk about weighted FTE. The unweighted FTE is when we take a look at the students who, a student who attends school full-time is 1 FTE, preschool student is half of an FTE, and it is possible to have students who are homeschooled or for some other reason only attend school part-time, and they are considered whatever proportion of an FTE that is. 360 minutes per day of instructional time is what the state uses to evaluate a full-time student. Weighted FTE introduces the weighting in addition to the unweighted FTE, and so some of the weightings include at-risk, which is qualifying for free lunches, transportation, special education, some vocational weightings are in there, so there's different weightings that are added. The total of the weightings are multiplied times the base state aid per pupil, $4,846 this year, to determine what the general fund is going to be. And then the LOB, also called the supplemental general, is a proportion of the general fund. It's important to take a look at this information to realize what we're talking about this morning as I share some information that some people have referred to as look back. That's kind of a local term. KSDE uses the term adjusted enrollment. When the State Department of Ed does finances for a district, they use for unweighted FTE the year before or the year before that, whichever is greater. So they do not use the current year's students for unweighted FTE. They do use the current year's weightings. So transportation weighting, special education is in there, the at-risk information for individuals that qualify for free lunches, that is all from this year. And so the formula itself is very confusing. This part of the formula gets really confusing as we take a look at it. In the past, ever since 2016, I have used the previous year's unweighted FTE and the previous year's weightings to allocate revenues. And there's a number of reasons that we have done that since 2016. That's been consistent. For one thing, it is the simplest way to do that. We work from the principal's building report. We take the Kansas State Department of Education's audit, and then we adjust that based upon the audit. And then the percentage is how we allocate revenues to campuses. Another reason, and probably the main reason that we started doing it this way, is that people have been watching those about the viability study. They know what enrollment does, and if you're a campus and you saw an increase in revenue or an increase in students, you would anticipate the next year when you look at that viability information to see that revenue increase by the students that were increased. Under the state's formula, that wouldn't be the case. It would be the year before that or the year before that, the way they do it. So That's just a little bit of explanation about how we've done what we've done, why we've done what we've done. That process also matches some of the allocations. If we distribute special education, that's done by a percentage from the weightings and the unweighted FTE, because we have no way of calculating how that is distributed by campuses. So I just wanted to share that information. In order to try to provide the board with as much information as possible, I did calculate information using the 2016 formula as well as the 2019 formula, and I used the unweighted FTE the same way that the State Department of Education did. So for the 1920 school year, they used the previous year. So they used 1819's unweighted FTE for that year. For 2021, they used fiscal year 19 as well. So that was 2 years before. And as you think about a district with declining enrollment like us, it kind of makes sense that it would be far back. In the 21-22, they used fiscal year 20, 22-23. We are anticipating, so this is an estimate for expenditures as well as revenues. The 22-23 information has not been audited, so that is going off of the principal's building reports. So that information is an estimate, and fiscal year 24, the 23-24 school year, is an estimate as well for FY23. The difference is the estimated enrollment and how the revenues are calculated for those formulas. So I wanted to share this information with the board and make sure that if you have questions to ask, feel free to ask them. The 2019 formula is different in our district from the 2016 formula because the local option budget, also called the supplemental general budget, is allocated using valuations of our land that is used, as opposed to the weighted FTE percentage. What board members, what questions do you have about this information? If there are no questions, then I'll go ahead and move on. And this is the rationale for the potential closure of Wetmore. And my role this morning is to provide factual information supporting the closure of the Wetmore Academic Center. Legislative post-audit. The most thorough financial study ever conducted at USD 113 was the legislative post-audit study during the 2014-15 school year. The study recommended the closure of the Wetmore School as a cost-saving measure. The primary basis of this conclusion was articulated: as a school building's enrollment declines, school officials sometimes decide it is necessary to consolidate the students into a combined location. This allows the district to take advantage of economies of scale in terms of staffing, and also results in reduced operational costs such as utilities and insurance. In addition to the cost savings mentioned in the study, costs for maintenance, transportation, and facility repairs will also result in a reduction of expenditures. The recommendation from the legislative post-audit auditors would have had more relevance today because of the significant decline in enrollment since the time of the audit. Enrollment. In the past 10 years, USD 113's decline in headcount enrollment, using data provided by Kansas State Department of Education's Data Central, has been a cumulative loss of 77 students from 1,141 in fiscal year 14 to 1,064 in fiscal year 23. Wetmore's declining enrollment during the same time period is 51, from 174 students to 123. In this time period, Wetmore's declining enrollment is 66% of the entire district's decline, even though their head count for the 22-23 school year accounts for 11.56% of the total district enrollment, according to the same data source. This is an average decline for the Wetmore Academic Center of 2.9% per year for the 10-year period. If we look at the last 5 years, using data provided by Kansas State Department of Education's Data Central, the district headcount enrollment has dropped a total of 56 students, from 1,120 in fiscal year 19 to 1,064 in fiscal year 23. During the same 5-year period, Wetmore has dropped 29 students from 152 to 123. 51.78% of the district's enrollment decline over the past 5 years can be attributed to Wetmore. This is an average decline of 3.81% per year for the 5-year time period. Based upon the number of seniors at Wetmore this year who will be graduating and the estimated number of kindergartners for next year, this trend will continue for the 23-24 school year. Based upon information recorded on September 20th, 2022 count day, the total head count is estimated to drop from 123 to 120 students for next year. As student numbers decrease, cost per student increases. This situation is compounded as the district is facing the need for increased compensation costs as we strive to remain competitive with other school districts as well as private industry for human resources. Looking at students in kindergarten through 12th grade, the head count range of class sizes is a low of 3 students in a class to a high of 14. Based upon the September 2022 count, there are 3 classes of students with 5 or less students and 5 classes with less than 10 students. The average grade level size is 9.46 students per class. Cost per student. In looking at campus level expenditures from the 21-22 USD 113 viability report, and using Kansas State Department of Education's Data Central's headcount for the same year, 21-22, the cost for educating a student in Sabetha is $10,627. Axtell's is $12,768, and Wetmore's is $13,059. And I would mention that those are operational costs. This difference is concerning, as is the historical trend line of declining enrollment. According to the same data source, Wetmore experienced a head count decline of 11 students, or 8.2% from the 21-22 school year to the 22-23 school year. In considering this continued decline, the disparity of campus per pupil cost will have increased. The high cost per pupil impacts the entire district. Personnel, especially in recent years, hiring of personnel has been extremely challenging and is anticipated to become even more of a challenge as fewer people are choosing teaching and the field of education as a career. USD 113 has been fortunate to be able to fill teaching positions. In some cases, we've had to rely on transition to teach programs as opposed to hiring teachers already licensed to teach specific grade levels and/or content areas. But with each passing year, the potential of not filling teaching positions increases as applicants for positions decrease. Finding qualified classified staff has also become very challenging. Many of our district's custodians are nearing retirement age, and qualified applicants have been extremely difficult to find. Many of our bus drivers are also at or near retirement age, and new drivers are also extremely hard to find. In the past couple of years, we have advertised for regular route bus drivers from the Wetmore area and have not been able to fill positions with employees from that locale who can start and stop routes from the Wetmore area. At this time, bus drivers from Sabetha drive school vehicles to and from the Wetmore area. Adding miles on vehicles, cost of vehicle operation, as well as driver time to be compensated. In addition to drivers, our district has had challenges in finding food service employees and clerical staff. This personnel shortage is predicted to worsen and will continue to challenge the operation of schools. The reduction of the facility will require fewer positions to serve the students of USD 113. Curriculum opportunities. As a district, USD 113 must name the school buildings to which the involved pupil shall be reassigned. This information is provided considering that students from Wetmore could be educated in the Sabetha schools. It is important to recognize that Wetmore constituents have reported that Wetmore students would likely attend schools in closer proximity to their residences than Sabetha. It is the responsibility of USD 113 Board of Education members to consider the resources within the control of the district. It is also important to recognize that increased curricular opportunities are not to be confused with the assertion that Wetmore students have not been provided quality instruction. It is recognized that there is a great deal of respect for the competence and professionalism of Wetmore staff and administration. This final area for consideration by the USD 113 Board of Education is that there are a number of curricular opportunities for students that would be increased if Wetmore students were to attend school in Sabetha. The majority of these opportunities impact high school age students, although there are some that impact middle school students. At the high school level, there are specialized vocal music choirs. A full-time vocational agriculture teacher is available, along with classroom, shop, and greenhouse facilities to facilitate hands-on learning. USD 103 has long held the position that a classroom teacher provides a better learning opportunity for students than online or remote platforms. Wetmore students who have been online learners in the past would have the opportunity to take Spanish, physics, AP government, and anatomy and physiology from actual classroom teachers. Elementary, middle, and high school art programs are another curricular opportunity that Wetmore students haven't had in the past that are planned to be available. In conclusion, as mentioned in the 2014-15 legislative post-audit study, Wetmore students could be served at sabbatical attendance centers with very little or no additional staff. This would result in considerable economy of scale savings. The closure of the Wetmore building would result in a more equitable distribution of resources for the purpose of educating district students. A reduction in the necessary personnel required to educate students is predicted to reduce future challenges of staffing. Finally, Wetmore students would have expanded curricular opportunities. Again, my role this morning is to provide information supporting the closure of the Wetmore facility. I have many emotional connections to the Wetmore school and community. This has been a heartbreaking process. I appreciate our Board of Education for considering this information as well as the information that will follow this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Now, if any member of the public would like to address the board regarding the closure of the Wetmore Academic Center, they may do so in the following manner. Please note, there will be a 5-minute limit per speaker. However, we will be allowing individuals to donate their time if they wish to. Therefore, if you wish to give your time to another speaker, please approach the microphone at this time, state your name, and whether you wish to provide your time to a specific speaker and their name, or that you would like to provide your time to anyone who needs additional minutes to conclude their remarks.
My name is Steve Sullivan. I
So at this time, it appears that there are 2 individuals, Wes No and Kathy No, who are releasing their time to Annalisa No. So that would be 10 additional minutes for Annalisa. And then for Andrea Lagos, is that correct? So there would be 2 individuals, Steve Sheldon and Camber Womack, who. Okay. So there would be, okay, so that would be an additional 10 minutes as well. Is there anyone else?
Matthew Rice, can I see the list of names, please? I'd like to write down too.
And you can donate it to anyone or no one in particular if someone needs additional time.
All right, I'd like to give half my time to Anna. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to release their time to some other speaker? Okay. Okay, so we will now turn to those individuals who would like to address the board on this matter. Upon your name being called, please state your name and address for the record. You will then have 5 minutes unless additional time has been provided to you to provide your statements to the board. Please focus your comments on whether closing the school building will improve the educational opportunities for students and remain respectful. If you fail to abide by these guidelines, your term will be ended. One thing before we get started, sometimes people's handwriting is not very good, just putting that out there, and I sometimes mess up people's names. I have a last name that people mess up too. I would just ask for a little bit of grace as I struggle with reading some of the handwriting and also pronouncing some of the names. It's not intentional in any way. So, with that, it seems that we have one student who needs to leave soon, so we're gonna get started with him. So Ryan Schuler, if you could please come to the microphone.
Sorry, I'm good. All right, hello everyone. As you all know, my name is Ryan Schuler. I live in Goff, and I am a sophomore at Wetmore Academic Center. I am here yet again to share my perspective with everyone here listening. This time, I will politely ask the board to listen to me. Listen well and try to understand. I've told you all before how I feel about Wetmore. I understand that I'm just a child, but does that make my thoughts or feelings any less important? Don't the students matter? I have a younger brother who also attends Wetmore schools. He's only in second grade, and he doesn't fully understand what's going on right now. I cannot express the pain I felt when my 7-year-old brother came home to me after that meeting that took place on December 12th, 2022, asking me if our school would close. Does anybody here understand how that makes me feel as an older brother? My brother and cousins all love their teachers, and so do I. Are some of them new teachers without much classroom experience? Yes, they are, but how do you expect them to learn? If Wetmore doesn't want to put their trust in teachers who also need to learn, who will? Teachers will probably continue to decline because nobody wants to take the leap of faith with teachers who have no experience. Just because a teacher is new doesn't mean they don't provide their students with outstanding educational opportunities. And as these teachers prove every day, it doesn't mean they care about their students any less than those who have been teaching for many years. If we will have to find a different school to go to, it will be devastating to many of us. My family has a long history of being in Wetmore. Many generations of Kurtz and Schulers attended or graduated from Wetmore, in a lot of ways coming to this building every day like its home. How could it possibly be in our best interest to be ripped away from our home? I feel as if the board isn't listening to us. We at Wetmore are a family. People at Wetmore Academic Center depend on each other. Did anybody here see or hear about our football team this year? What about the Scholars Bowl team the other day? Everybody is so concerned about this situation, deciding if our school is going to shut down instead of being concerned about the extracurriculars and/or sports. Many of us don't understand the thinking of our board members. I used to feel safe with you all above us. Now all I feel is pain, knowing that the USD 113 Board of Education doesn't want to keep us going. Doesn't want to do everything they can to help support Wetmore in our time of need. What will it take for the board to understand this is a mistake? I'm not a very religious boy, but I have been recently praying to my Heavenly Father and loved ones I've lost recently to help me. Help get this board to understand our pain. Help me and others who are fighting for this school. I want the board to think as if they were me or any other student who knows and understands what's going on right now. What if when you were in school and your board tried to shut you down? How would you feel? Losing all those friends you made? What about a high school sweetheart? Think more like us and less like businessmen or women, and think how you're impacting children. As stated, I am not really supposed to be here. I agreed to someone I'd go to a volleyball game for. But a part of me thought I needed to be here and give my piece, because it's wrong to me for the board to want to shut down my school. I've been going here since kindergarten. It's my home. I love everyone here. And as I said last time, we are the Cardinals. We are strong. We will not give up. We will continue to fight for our students, our teachers, and our communities. Thank you.
Jessica Atwood.
My name is Jessica Atwood. I'm a 27-year resident of Wetmore, and a proud 2002 graduate and a 14-year member of the amazing staff at Wetmore Academic Center. While the public notice for this hearing, when it came out, was a kick in the gut, the portion that states need to recruit and retain quality staff is one of the reasons for closure has continued to eat at me. The statement makes it seem as if the staff at Wetmore is not of good quality. This feels like a personal dig. I am a quality educator. My coworkers are quality educators. In fact, each person in this building, no matter their official title, contributes to the success of the students within these walls. There's no doubt that we have a quality staff. It's because of Wetmore's staff is of good quality that we know what it takes to build relationships with our students and to know what they need to be successful. We are doing good work here. The students are our priority. To say that the need to recruit and retain quality staff as a reason to close the building doesn't make sense. Yes, we have some young staff that are new to teaching or new to working in a school setting. They must start somewhere. Why not here in a school where the quality of education is high and the support is like that of a family? If I had time, I could give you example after example of the amazing things that happen in this school daily. Students who show integrity when they think no one is watching, older students that don't hesitate to help a younger student, and students making improvements in their academics. In fact, our academic improvements are backed by our test scores and state rankings. It might be cliche, but the school is truly one where everyone knows your name. The following is a quote from the 2005-2006 yearbook. When one thinks about a place where everyone knows your name, people most likely would think of just that, a person simply knowing everyone's name. But here at Wetmore Academic Center, it's more than that. It's more than people knowing who you are. It is people knowing who you are, what you stand for, where you are coming from, and where you are going. Where everyone knows your name is more than a concept, more than an ideal. It is a way of being, a way of living. Knowing what to say to someone to make them have a brighter day. Knowing who to tell when a classmate is having trouble. Knowing how to comfort a friend in need. Because the staff and students at Wetmore Academic Center truly care about each other and function as a family, our school is a place where everyone knows your name. This school year has felt like we have been given an eviction notice without enough time to make up the rent. Please give this Wetmore family more time.
Linda Boyd.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Linda Boyd, and I am from Wetmore, Kansas. And until May of this year, I was the English teacher here at Wetmore High School, a position I held for 42 years. I come before you today with 3 questions. Number 1, many members of this board have repeatedly refused our very reasonable request to have a neutral third-party auditor review the financial figures put forth by this board. My question is this: why? What are you afraid of? We here at Wetmore would welcome such an audit of our failures. My second question deals with an email sent to Sabetha patrons, which stated that Sabetha students were, quote unquote, suffering because of Wetmore. My question is how? What programs at Sabetha have been cut? What classes aren't the Sabetha students having access to due to Wetmore? How much Sabetha staff has been cut due to Wetmore? The constituents of Wetmore and Goff, as well as Sabetha, deserve an answer. Finally, has the board done their due diligence by conducting a cost-effective analysis of how the closure of Wetmore schools will affect the economies of both ends of the district? It would demonstrate a lack of foresight and transparency if this analysis were not completed. In conclusion, before the board even considers school closure, these questions deserve answers. I thank you for your time.
Matt Walters.
My name is Matt Walters, 4863 Wild Ridge Circle, Wamego, Kansas, 66547. Do the right thing. It was a sweltering, gross Saturday evening in Marietta, and I'd offered to help my now wife and some kiddos from Wetmore High School run the concession stand at Thunder Hill Speedway. I was jazzed up. Not because I was going to sweat off 8 or 9 pounds by the end of the night, but because I would be spending time with my now wife, one of her best friends, and I figured hanging out with them and a few parents from Wetmore would be fun. Everyone involved was doing the right thing, giving up a summer evening to help raise money for the Wetmore Booster Club. I bet there are plenty of others in this gymnasium right now that's done the very same, till Thunder Hill ceased to exist. It was an eye-opening night, a fun night, a night when I learned more about this community and its people. A rewarding evening because a small group came together to do something right for this school. On top of that, a good friend of mine was racing that evening, so it was going to be a blast to see him race his modified for the very first time. It was cool to literally feel the noise, taste the dirt, and see the fun had by many. That night, it felt like all the race cars went from 0 to 100 miles per hour in seconds. Kind of like the proposal to close the Wetmore Academic Center. It's gone from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. But this feels completely different. My guess is all the people that have worked at Thunder Hill before understand exactly what I mean and feel the very same way. I'm not homegrown. I'm not a Wetmore Cardinal. But I have a bit of Cardinal blood flowing through me because of my wife, Janelle. She is a homegrown Wetmore Cardinal who came home to do the right thing. She graduated in '87, got degrees from Emporia State, then Washburn, and began her full-time teaching career in this very building. She spent 23 years literally doing everything for this school and this district while raising 2 daughters by herself. She experienced all the imaginable highs and lows from the world of special ed to being the principal of the WAC, her home. Everything from running the concession stand, driving a van to games, serving breakfast and lunch, cleaning toilets, taking kiddos to the Topeka rescue mission, even supporting a local family through the most horrific day of their lives just before Christmas. This morning, her heart aches, and she's not sure she can speak because of the senseless vote you're going to take at the end of the meeting. So my question to each and every one of you, the board members of USD 113 Prairie Hills, and to you, Mr. Evans, the superintendent of this district, Do you truly, honestly, and ethically believe that at the end of this meeting, you're going to do the right thing? Why? Is the Wetmore Academic Center losing money? From what I understand, the answer is no. Are the test scores of the WAC substandard and not meeting requirements? The answer is a resounding no. Are you basing this on declining enrollment? By what Mr. Evans said, that's part of it. But how many schools in Kansas have a smaller enrollment? How many are in worse shape? I know of only one school that's slated to close at the end of the 22-23 school year. Do you? It's Wilson in central Kansas. And their patrons are considering a lawsuit at this time to keep the school open. So why are we really here? The political agenda of a few? The masses? I realize that difficult decisions are made every day by everybody on the face of this planet. But this topic appeared on one of your agendas out of the clear blue sky. So I'm going to wrap up my 5 minutes with this. Do you truly think you're about to do the right thing? Board members and Mr. Evans, I ask you to look into the piece of glass my wife Janelle placed before you. Not everyone, because Dollar General was out. And I want you to dial in what I'm about to read. It's called The Man in the Glass by Peter Wimbrow. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. When you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, if anybody'd like to give me another minute, I'd be very thankful for that. When you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end, and you've passed your most difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may you may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be the heartache and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. Thank you very much, and go Cats.
Rodney Burdick?
Rodney Burdick, Wetmore, Kansas. First off, I'd like to say that I've heard some board members in the past, previous meetings, say what they missed to make it to a board meeting. So I'll tell you where I'm supposed to be this morning. I'm supposed to be at Asheville helping auctioneer at their annual Knights of Columbus sale. Instead, I'm here. Something I've done in several communities around the area, no charge, donating my time. It's quite fulfilling to help other communities out. This is something I think some of the boards should consider doing in the future instead of tearing down the community. I've been told from one person, and I got too personal in a previous meeting, but I guess telling families of 120 plus students that we're going to change your lives by closing your school is not personal. It's very interesting to me. Now, there is something I don't think some of you realize, and it is that we love our kids as much as you do yours. And to hear Mr. Blissing ask an amazing question at the previous board meeting, how does this district benefit from closing Wetmore? For a little bit, you could hear a pin drop. Then it was stated, well, so that we could use a new track, which I'm guessing is just a taste of what is planned. But I ask you, if you could somehow put yourself in our shoes, would you be happy with that answer? The honest answer is no. As for closing a building in the district, I think there is one that needs to be closed. That building is the district office building. In today's world, almost everything is done on a laptop. And there is no reason for that to use an office. Unless, of course, all the excess cash from capital outlay and other accounts is stored there in the form of dollar bills and is boxed up, then we probably ought to keep it. A few other comments from the board. One of talking to a couple more residents and saying that everything went great on the morals about the consolidation. Because what we've been told on another issue is called cherry picking. If all Morrow residents were surveyed, and why not add in the Burton residents too, the story might be quite different. Another comment, we don't want to close a school, it's the last thing we want to do. I will never understand. Why are we here at a public hearing then, if this is the case? Another comment at the previous meeting was, I'm worried about trying to find a superintendent that will travel to all schools in the district, which I'm guessing is probably once a month visit. I don't know, but it can't be daily or weekly. If the board plans as stated are to send our kids to Sabetha, who if went would be traveling every day. Don't sound right to me. Which brings up my next question. Who decided to have this public hearing on this Saturday and to have it say that the plan is to send the Wetmore students to Sabetha? I've never heard any of this discussed at a board meeting, and this is just a couple people decide how this all goes down. A few meetings ago, I had an older successful man from Sabetha tell me how furious he and his wife were on how this was being handled. He said this whole thing is more of a debate of who's going to win versus what can we do to help. And I think he's spot on. Something I've heard over the years from grandparents is grandkids are the best. You can spoil them and send them home. This whole thing is starting to look like some grandparents trying to spoil their grandkids, and in the process, forgetting about their adopted ones. In closing, our students will not be going to Sabetha School, and decisions like this will only hurt businesses in the Sabetha area as well. This whole thing has been pushed way too fast and hard without merit, and I believe we're all put on this earth to be way better than all of this.
Sarah Cormier.
I'm Sarah Cormier. I live in Wetmore, and I have a letter I would like to read on behalf of one of our sophomore students of Wetmore High School who could not be here today. My name is Clayton Murrow. I live in Wetmore and am a sophomore at Wetmore Academic Center. I'm here to question the reckless and impulsive actions this board is considering. I've been going to Wetmore since kindergarten. I know just about everyone in this community by name because in a small community, we stand together, we stand proud, and we stand strong. I've been invested in the talk of closing Wetmore since it was brought up in the fall. I've attended every meeting. As a student in high school, that is a lot of time wasted because a few careless adults want to nail our school down and close the doors. If you decide to close our doors, you will have betrayed me, every other student enrolled in Wetmore schools, my teachers, and my community as a whole. What would Wetmore be without our schools? Would it dwindle down to nothing? Would there be any hope left without the center of this community? I hope to never see that day. This school is the heart of Wetmore. I have thought about where I would go to school if Wetmore was no longer an option. I don't want to go anywhere else. It can never be the same. I'm fortunate enough to have friends from many surrounding schools. I know what the atmosphere of these schools is like. These schools are not Wetmore. How would our students react to moving schools? How would students react to moving schools? Students that aren't in sports or aren't very outgoing wouldn't have much of a chance to make connections with new peers because they are often afraid of being judged. Would these kids have to graduate in a school they aren't even comfortable in? There are many factors of life that your decision will impact. These impacts may not be felt by this board, but they will affect the future of Wetmore students. In December, I received my class ring. I've wondered many times whether or not I will need to have it remade with a new school name on it. I've come to the conclusion that Wetmore will always be my home. I have been here since kindergarten, so why should I change my ring? The same goes for my school. Why should I want to change? As a student, I do not want to have different teachers. Wetmore has teachers that comfort every student. Our teachers truly care and find ways to teach, but still make learning interesting. On a final note, I would like to address something that was on the radio this week. Yesterday morning, it was said on KNCA that the board wanted to close Wetmore because of the inability to retain quality staff. I fail to understand how Wetmore High School is in the top 20% of schools in the state of Kansas and the top school in Nemaha County if we do not have high-quality staff. Please consider the amount of lives this decision will affect before making a decision. Thank you for your time. Mama, I would like to respectfully ask Mrs. Lippert, please stop typing when people are speaking. This is the last chance for a lot of people in this community to speak on what is their livelihood, and I would just really appreciate that.
So I'm going to respond to that because I want to be an active learner. Everything that is said here is important, very important. And I take notes because I want to be actively engaged, because the material you discuss is important. It helps me to focus, understand, and remember this information. Maybe it's an inappropriate assumption, but I think you want me to remember and understand this information. If you don't want me to listen, if you don't want me to understand, if you don't want me to remember, I will cease.
Use the microphone.
Again, respectfully, whether or not you are actively taking notes and participating isn't going to make a difference when your mind is made up. Thank you.
Michelle, I'm gonna mess it up. Welling? Welling, sorry.
Good morning, my name is Michelle Llewellyn from Goff. I currently have 2 children that attend Wetmore Academic Center. My children will not attend Sabetha schools if our school is closed. I would like the land valuations and base state aid to follow my children to the school that they attend. Thank you.
Andy Henry?
Hello, Andy Henry. I graduated in 2015 from Wetmore here. I've talked a lot at these meetings, so I don't have too much to say. We've been fighting this for a long time, and a lot of us, we are getting tired of it. I've been doing it when I was in high school. My kids, if you keep it open, are probably going to do the same thing. The only thing that I can ask you guys is that if you do decide to close this school, you do it with a little heart. We got teachers that don't know where their jobs are going to be at next year, students that are juniors if they don't graduate. Just treat this family like you treat your own family. We got kids, parents, teachers, everything that makes this community a whole. I think you guys have that in your community too. Just respect our community. We got 3 kids, and I know Todd said this, that you're going to provide the students education in Sabetha. In October, you used your projections that none of the students were going to go. So I don't know why that came up. Everybody knows the students are going south or west. They're not going north. Very few will go to Sabetha if they do. That money that the students get from the state that belongs to the students, that's where it goes. I believe the land does that as well. I know none of our kids are going to Sabetha. We don't know where they're going to go. But just have some heart in your decisions. Give us another year if you close it. Do it at the end of 24. That's all I can ask. Thank you.
Kyla Milligan?
Hi, I'm Carla Mulligan. I live in Wetmore, Kansas, and I'm currently an 8th grader at Wetmore Academic Center, where I have been attending since kindergarten. There were a couple times I moved away for a short period of time and was enrolled in a bigger school. The transfer was super scary. I was petrified because there were so many kids. The halls were crowded and everything was super loud. The first week of school, I was by myself and I didn't feel accepted. The kids had already made friend groups and I was left by myself. With so many students, the teachers didn't see me. I felt invisible. The kids would laugh at me and I felt embarrassed. I missed being at Wetmore. It took a couple of weeks before some of the kids talked to me, but they didn't seem interested in being friends with me. They already had their friends. I was on my own. Soon students started bullying me and my sister, and it took 3 days for the staff to notice and take action. But the problem was never solved. My mom decided it was time to come back to Wetmore. A small school is perfect for us. I realized in a bigger school you don't get the same attention you do here. When I was in a bigger school, they'll teach you to the whole class, but if you ask for help, there's already one kid waiting. By the time class ended, there wasn't enough time to help everyone. At Wetmore, they had the time to help you and further explain the assignment. They give the option of coming into the classroom in the morning or after school if you don't have the time to further help you in class. And even some of the teachers from other classes will help you with homework. They say it's a village, right? Also, at the biggest school, you only have PE and music twice a week. That will where you get both of these things every day. Our school is doing very well in the sports area. A couple of years ago, the 8th grade had a high percentage in math and ELA than Spencer's 8th grade. And 10th grade was the same way. What most 10th graders did better in last year's assessments than the Spencer 10th graders. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes the bigger school is better. When I was in 7th grade, I was scared to go out to basketball. The coaches and some of the other teachers encouraged me to try it. I loved it, and that's my favorite sport playing. With all the encouragement, I wasn't scared, and it was great. It's the same with volleyball. We have a new coach this year, and I knew her very well. She encouraged me and all the middle school girls to try volleyball, and was very supportive, always welcoming every move with a smile. If it weren't for these coaches, I wouldn't have played sports in middle school. We also have new teachers this year. They are very nice and awesome additions to our staff. I really feel like our teachers have my back, which is very important for all the students to feel that way. Our teachers have taught us to be great listeners and great individuals. Most importantly, I have learned to be safe, respectful, and responsible. These are the 3 things that everyone should know. Our principals, teachers, and staff can make sure all of our students know and understand these 3 things. I've taken the time to learn about our school and our school district. There are some facts proving that we are not in any financial problems. In fact, we are in a good position in the financial stance, as many adults in our community have pointed out several times over the past few months. We have already increased our enrollment numbers, and we should give them the opportunity to increase even more. One of our new students is an 8th grader in my class. She made friends and fit in very quickly. I also see the other new kids in around the school in the mornings and eating breakfast with their friends. It's nice to have a school that gives us the ability to see everyone every day, no matter what grade they're in. After talking with my friends and classmates, I know there aren't many kids playing this Bethel, but my did most of them. I know I won't be attending to Bethel, and I plan to. Many other students here feel the same way. Why should that a great school? I don't know the answer to that, but hopefully our community will get answers that make sense. And just a friendly reminder, the students at Wetmore are people, not numbers. Please keep that in mind when making your decisions. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for your time.
Ethan Schmidt.
Hi, my name is Ethan Schmitz. I am a structural engineering training at Bucky Campbell Company in Kansas City. I have work experience in designing school buildings and athletic facilities, among many other things. I attended B&D from kindergarten until my senior year. I was a member of the first graduating class of Nemaha Central. I am married to Brianna Bowden from Wetmore, and she was a 2014 graduate. School closure should come with some kind of notice. We received a year to have all of our last moments and have the best year possible knowing the outcome. As students, we can enjoy our last moments already knowing the outcome, rather than having a potential school closing looming over our heads throughout the entire school year. It was a hard decision for me to decide where to go. I debated between Axtell, Centralia, and even living with my grandparents in Hanover, Kansas. The ultimate deciding factor for me was to go to Nemaha Central because I was already a member of the baseball team. I had an okay year, but I was not near as involved in my new school. I played football and baseball, and that was it. We as students got along good for the most part, but looking back, I think the wrong decision was ultimately made. B&B was about to see a rise in enrollment after a few small elementary school classes. People were moving back. I think the board reacted too quickly to a changing environment. I currently stay in touch with all of my B&B classmates. I cannot say the same thing about my Central classmates, where only a few stay in touch. I don't think the decision of the board to accept one positive experience of changing schools from a long time ago is very advisable. For most students, it is a life-changing and life-impacting decision. I can guarantee that the students of Burnham would say that what happened to them was not right. They met all of the standards given to them, and then they were just told they would be forced to close. And if they would like to close Wetmore, why have they not tried to actually consolidate the schools with a change in name that the students from Wetmore could actually be a part of, like what happened at Nemaha Central? That should be the minimum standard for consolidated schools, to actually make an effort to accommodate the students from Wetmore. Since I've been with Brianna, I have been to far more Wetmore events, and I feel like I have been embraced more by this community than in Central. Smaller schools tend to have a much better sense of community, and that is a positive that cannot be ignored. Transportation times need to be considered for students of Wetmore as well. I would like to ask the parents and students of the SPED schools, would you feel comfortable with your students having to drive more than 30 minutes one way every day for school just to get there? And not to mention that that would eliminate a chance for a lot of them to participate in extracurricular activities if they have to get there so early and leave and get home so late. I urge the board to also evaluate the cost of operating 3 buildings in Sabetha. The other comparable school in size in the county is Nemaha Central, and they operate out of 2 buildings, a high school and a combined elementary school. There could be larger savings involved by this. If Nemaha Central can do it, why not Sabetha? I also urge the board to reevaluate spending of athletics and extracurriculars. Both Wetmore and Axtell have minor budgets and raise the funds themselves. Why is it that Wetmore and Axtell have to sacrifice so much and only Sabetha gets to reap the benefits? The first duty of any school is to educate students. Extracurriculars are just that, extra. I understand the importance that extracurriculars can have. I was a former all-state football player in both 8-man and 11-man levels, but they should not take away from education. At B&B, we wore the same uniforms for 10 years that were ripping apart, so they were in far from perfect condition. But what it comes down to is the name on the front of the jersey matters more than the equipment. Spending can be reduced at any time. Quality of education should also be considered. Wetmore is regarded as the highest rated school in the county, with Sabetha being rated as the lowest. Quality of staff has come into question, and I have to ask, if the school with the highest rating is receiving questions for the quality of staff, but the worst rated school is not, what are the standards being used? How is this being evaluated? Why close the highest rated school in the county? The Sabetha schools have a lot of wiggle room in their budget. Why have they not made more significant cuts so we could avoid this whole prospect of closing the Wetmore schools? Thank you.
Brianna Schmidt.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brianna Smith, priorly Woodland. I got the honor and privilege of attending Wetmore for the entirety of my education, except for preschool where I went to Sabetha. I graduated from 2014. For the past several months, I've been following these discussions and meetings online as my husband and I currently live in Kansas City. And I feel like I have a unique situation and experience to shed light on many topics that you have discussed. Some of these include the fact that I commuted 30+ minutes one way to attend Wetmore Academic Center, that I married someone from Daleville who was in the first consolidating class, and he was forced to leave to go to Nemaha Central. We've had several discussions on this, but I won't speak for his account. We already did that. I have several points to make, so I'll try to keep it brief. Number 1 is that I've attended more of these meetings in 26 years of life than anyone should. The first time was when I was in elementary school, and I can vividly remember being terrified that my school and my safe place in my home was going to be taken away from me. You want to say that these conversations aren't affecting children, but they are. Sorry, Mrs. Blue, you know I cry a lot. To say that this won't change their lives is wrong. It still affects us to this day, and I think this shows it, the fact that I am still scarred and worried and thinking about these kids going through what I went through. I didn't understand it when I was in second grade or third and we were having these conversations, but they got brought up again when I was in high school. And since I was an active member of many things in the school, I had to stand at this podium and talk to several of you again and try to justify why we were worthy of remaining open, of all the great things that we were doing. But yet, here I find myself again. And I'm in a very different situation this time. But I'm still facing a board who is threatening to take away my home. And Wetmore is still my home. My husband and I come back for games, for board meetings, for funerals of teachers and their husbands and their families. We come to fundraisers, we donate money. Even though we are not active members, we're not active members, we are active members. Even though we aren't living in this community, it is still impacting us. Number two, the last board meeting, several of you discussed unification. Like I said, I was in high school when Axel and Byrne joined our district. And during that time, you guys tried to implement several things to unify students, like messaging boards and team building trips and combining classes. I got to take Spanish with Axel and Byrne students through a Sabetha teacher. And the one thing that these had in common was that Axel, Byrne, and Wetmore students made connections with each other. Several of those that I still stay in contact with today. But Sabetha kids didn't. When we were messaging, we weren't messaging with Sabetha kids. When we were at these retreats, we weren't with Sabetha kids. They stayed in their own group, and Axel, Byrne, and Wetmore were in their own group. I did talk to a couple of Sabetha kids, and the things that they told me, they made it very clear that they believed Wetmore was the problem. If they didn't have to pay for Wetmore, they'd have the newest and nicest of everything. So while we were worried about books and classrooms, Sabetha was worried about their gym or their weight room. And I think that mentality still fits today when you mention that you're worried about a track. When Axel and Wetmore needs improvements or want improvements, they go to the community to do it. I don't understand why that's not an option for Sabetha as well. Number three, at the last board meeting, you talked about drive times. Like I mentioned, we lived 30 minutes away from Wetmore. And very luckily, I had a mom that was able to make that drive with us. But to say that it doesn't affect students or that it's doable is wrong. If I didn't have a mom who was supportive of that, I would not have been able to participate in sporting events. There was times where we got back to Wetmore at midnight. We had to turn around and drive to Hoyt, which was another 30 minutes at a minimum, go to bed and wake up to come back for morning practice. That's not including the fact that we still had homework to do or tests to study for, or just the lack of sleep. 4, extracurriculars. Are they important? Absolutely. Throughout high school, I was in big, Stuco, NHS, KA's, basketball, volleyball, track. The only thing I didn't do was cross country, if you know why. But I never once wished that I would have gone to a bigger school for that reason. And in fact, most of the people I've come into contact with post-graduation say nothing but how jealous they are that I got to participate in so many things while they had to focus on one sport.
Matt Kramer.
Morning, Matt Kramer, my wife and I reside just outside of Bancroft. We currently have one child that has the privilege of doing school here at the Wetmore Academic Center, and 2 on the ground, not too far away from starting school as well. If this board would decide to close this school, we're not sure where it'll go. There's no schools around that have achieved the academic standards that Wetmore has set. With that being said, at bare minimum, I would just like to ask that our land and the land taxes, I guess, that we pay into be transferred with our children, as well as state-based aid or the unearned revenue that this board is potentially going to keep with our children. Thanks.
Matt Bloom.
Bloom, I currently reside at Rural Golf, neighbors with last gentleman. We currently have 2 kids that go to Wetmore Academic Center, first grader and a third grader. They will not attend any other school in the district that we chose to close this school. And brings me to another point. I believe Mr. Evans brought up that Wetmore has lost 51 kids, I believe, in the last 5 years, I think is what he said. I believe if there was a study done, we would find that those students still live within the school district and should go to Wetmore. And I believe there's students that live in the school district that should be going to other schools as well. My question is, why are they not doing that? It's failure on all of our parts. Not me, not you, not no individual person, but everybody as a whole. And as a school board, I believe that maybe we haven't led the way that we should to retain those students. It would be very easy for me to send my kids elsewhere. My wife is a teacher in another district. We chose Wetmore because of a lot of reasons. It's family, it's convenient. We have a tremendous staff. I've always thought that. And it is really easy to have somebody watch your kids if you need to. We're very helpful for one another. And it is disappointing that we're here today. I believe that we have some good plans to help bring students in, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
James Dobbins.
I'm Jim Dobbins. I live in section 32 of Harrison Township, far southwest corner of the district. My address is Gulf. The board has heard in the last few weeks from information gathered from District 113 financial records that the Wetmore School is pretty much paying its own way. An early American writer, Thomas Paine, wrote, "He who dares not offend cannot be honest." It is my observation that some of those on the Board of Education from the Sabetha area have become selfish stewards of the district's resources. I would urge all members of the Board of Education to become good stewards of those resources and just follow the district motto, preparing kids, shaping the future, for all students of the district. And as the sign indicated on the way into the building, stop the bullying.
Is it Valerie Henry?
Hi, my name is Valerie Henry. I reside in Rural Golf. I am speaking on behalf of Lindsay and Jeff Taking, who cannot be here today. To Superintendent Evans and the USD 113 school board members. Hello, my name is Lindsay Taking, and my husband and I and our family are part of the Wetmore community. My husband and I currently have 2 children attending the Wetmore Academic Center and 2 more that will attend in the future. Our children will not attend Sabetha schools if Wetmore Academic Center is closed. All land valuation, tax dollars, unearned revenue, and base state aid should follow our children to the new school district if they attend without any stipulations. I feel if you choose to force the closure of Wetmore, then Sabetha should not obtain any monetary benefit connected to or earned by our students, families, staff, and school organizations. I've yet to see any solid reasons as to why Wetmore should be closed, which makes the community feel like this is a personal attack. If you choose to close Wetmore, you should at least give the decency to give valid reasons and release any monetary gains you would receive. We are not your pawns, we are people, and we deserve decency and respect, neither of which anyone in our community feels this has been shown to us. Lindsay and Jeff Taking, parents of a 2nd grader, a kindergartner,
currently enrolled at Wetmore Academic Center. Thank you.
Matthew Rice. And just so there's no confusion, I believe you donated a minute earlier, so you have 4. Do you want me to stop you at a certain point or let the
I'd
board
like to
know?
correct you, I donated 2.5, I donated a minute. I was a minute now. Correct, right.
I'm an attorney, I'm not
I only
paying
need
now.
30 seconds.
I apologize.
It's real simple.
Okay, I just didn't want you to, I didn't want there to be
90% of what I've heard is about finances and teachers. What about the kids? Is that what we're here for, kids? We're here to make teachers, or we're here to make communities? It's about kids. That's all I gotta say. Take care of the kids.
If I need help with math later, I'm gonna ask you, Matthew, okay? Corey Bloom.
Good morning. My name is Corey Bloom, and I'm from Wetmore. First of all, I would like to say the person that came up with this time for a public hearing must not have been from a small rural community where agriculture and taking care of livestock is the way many of us make a living. That the 10 a.m. meeting is not an ideal time, but once again, our small community had to make a sacrifice to accommodate others. Since October, our community action group has spent many hours researching and investigating many things. Many people think the talk of school closure began in October, but that is false. The talk of school closure was brought up about the time that school started this year, but I am sure it was talked about way before then. Andrea Lagos and myself went down and met with Jackson Heights Superintendent Jim Howard, along with 2 board members from Jackson Heights in November. We felt it was best to let our neighboring school district know what was happening and get some communication going for our community. We explained what was going on, and Mr. Howard said he figured he would hear something before this. I asked, "What do you mean?" He said he had seen Mr. Evans at a meeting, and Todd asked him if he would be interested in any land. Land? Yes, the Wetmore School District. We were thinking about making some changes. Then in November, it was brought up by Kathy Lippert that we need to form a committee and go talk to Jackson Heights to see if they were interested in the Wetmore kids and the land to go with it. It was amazing that she was able to read Todd's mind and come up with that scenario. It is also amazing that it has been talked about by some of the board members, and some of them knew nothing about it. This is not how a school board should operate. Talks of school closure carried on between some of you board members, but not all of you before school started. There's been many talks about how some of you didn't like the 2019 viability policy that was voted on and adopted to be used to determine if the school was viable. The vote passed on a 6-1 in favor of this policy. It was gospel, no ifs, ands, or buts. We had to maintain this. To this day, all the schools in our district are viable according to the policy put in place by our board. Then all of a sudden, we were told it was just a guideline to follow. Know the board that a person is on when something is voted on and passed, that it can just be changed without a vote. To this day, no vote has taken place to change that policy. You don't make the rules up as you go to fit your needs. Some of you that sit on other boards are not making yourselves look very good by not following through what you voted on and put in place for our schools to follow. Some of you might want to think about that as you make your decision, because this has gotten a lot of publicity. What board would want anyone who doesn't follow policy to sit on their board? And I know some of you sit on other boards. Do what is right. If the school is going to close, if Wetmore School is closed, it is going to hurt our community Just look at some of the neighboring towns around that lost their schools and see what it has done to their community. The Wetmore community is not the only one that is going to suffer. The Sabetha community is going to suffer as well. Many of us from the Wetmore community do business in the Sabetha community. We do business there because we are pleased with the service and we like the people we do business with. If we didn't, we wouldn't do business there. My wife and I did over $200,000 worth of business in the Sabetha community this past year. And I know there are several others that spend a lot of money in your community. To the business owners from Sabetha, if you lose business from the Wetmore community, you can thank the board members from the Sabetha because they're the ones that are representing you. I'm sure they have the answers and can help you make up the lost revenue. This is not a threat as many of you would say it is or have already stated that it is. It is just a plain and simple fact. Why would we support businesses that will not be supporting our kids? As I said before, business owners, thank some of your board members for your loss of revenue. The Wetmore Community Action Group gave a list of questions to the board members to answer, and only one that answered any of the questions was Philip Bussey, and I would like to say thank you, Philip, for at least taking the time. The community has asked several times, how is the closing of Wetmore going to benefit USD 113 school district? This question finally got answered by our board president in January at the regular school board meeting. Sabetha wants a new track. Sports over education. Now we've heard it all. What a way to put education first. Thank you.
Tabitha Schuler.
Good morning, my name is Tabitha Schuler and I live in Rock, Kansas. I currently have 3 children that attend Wetmore Academic Center. My children will not attend Sabetha if our school closes. I would like the land valuation and Bay State aid to follow my children to the school they attend. And the rest of my time I'm going to donate to my daughter, Taylor Fisher.
Taken Fisher.
My name is Tate Bishop, and I'm not an adult. I'm an 8th grade student at Wetmore Academic Center, and I've been going to Wetmore since I was in kindergarten. I know most of you have made up your minds about closing your school, but I think you should look at the facts and rethink your decision. If you close your school, you'd be hurting many students and staff. But that's not the problem, is it? Put yourself in our position. Think about when you were in school. Would you want to be taken away from students who felt like family to you? Since we have a smaller school, we have closer friendships. I hope you can change your mind because I would hate to be taken away from people who felt like family to me and my great staff I left. The staff here are very caring about our students. They always make sure that it's normal and talk to them about anything. Last year, a very serious incident happened with a boy in the student that it happened to felt very comfortable talking about it to our staff here. They knew that they would take care of it and they would stop it. I can't help but think about how maybe I won't be able to find staff like that anywhere else. I greatly appreciate the staff here and how much I care and how much they care about their students. At almost every full basketball game, my principal encourages me to shoot the ball. If I see him in the hallways, he's always telling me to shoot the ball because that's the only way to score. This isn't about basketball, but my principals encourage me to do my best, and I'm very thankful that I'm growing up around staff like this. During the pandemic in 2020, I was struggling a lot, and they taught me how to overcome hard challenges. I learned to never give up and always put in full effort. Throughout the pandemic, they always made it clear that I could talk to them about anything. I'm very proud of how far I've come, and I would not have been able to do it without the staff here. I want more of the kids who need one at one time get the help they need. If you send us to a bigger school, all the kids who need help may not get all the help they need and deserve. For example, my brother needs extra help. He gets that at Wetmore. If we had a transfer, then he may not get as much extra help that he needs and deserves. This upsets me because it can really affect the students. Before you go to close, realize what you're doing to the students and staff here. A parent of students that go to Sylvester and went to Wetmore prior said, "This is an entire school, an entire community. It's not just a game you can quit or pass off when you're sick." I really like this because it shows how our community feels. It feels like we're forgotten about and you don't care about our feelings. That maybe, just maybe someone here today can change your mind. Thank you for your time. And again, I'm not a number. Thank you.
Susan Bloom.
Good morning, friends, family, Wetmore community, and the distinguished members of the board. My name is Susan Bloom. I live in Netawaka, and I must admit, my children did not attend Wetmore Academic Center. They went to Jackson Heights, but I have grandchildren that attend Wetmore. I would like to address a couple points from my personal point of view. First, I'd like to address the Wetmore community. I was very involved in my kids' activities when I was in school, but I have also been around numerous other schools. But I must say, I have never been around a more involved community than this community in their school. It is simply amazing the support this community gives to the school. I see almost every household volunteering time and money, but in my opinion, time is much more important than money because that makes you invested. When you look at the state assessment scores at this school, I feel you must not only credit availability and commitment of the quality of staff, but also to the parental involvement. When parents are involved in their children's education, they seem to bloom and excel, and the students, parents, and staff at Wetmore live this every day. I would also like to address a point Mr. Evans brought up earlier, saying if they went to Sabetha, there would be more opportunities for art, music, the FFA things. I will have to say, Jackson Heights has all of that stuff as well. It's not just about that. The next point I would like to address is the Sabetha community. As many of you probably are aware, I have worked in the Sabetha community for over 23 years. I must admit, I've had several conversations with members of the community, and they seem confused as to why the board takes this stance. Almost to a person, they all seem to think this closing of the Wetmore Academic Center is not necessary. While having a conversation with a particular person in Sabetha, one statement really caught my attention. They said, "What kind of values are we teaching our kids?" When I asked them to explain that, they said, "Are we so blind that we cannot see that we are teaching our kids that there is something they want and they feel they deserve they can take the life out of the community just to get what they want. Is that what we want our kids to take away from this? Do you not want them to understand that in life, you do not get everything you want, you need to work for it? That has really made me sit back and think about how not only the kids in Wetmore, but also in Sabetha who will be affected by this. School is not only about education, but preparing our children for their future. So my question to this board, what values do you want the kids in both communities to remember you as having? Thank you.
Jimmy Crane.
My name is Jimmy Crane. I'm from rural Goff. And I'd like to start this morning by telling a well-known Bible story out of 2 Samuel, the story of King David and Bathsheba. Now, King David, he coveted another man's wife, and so he had the husband of this wife sent to the front lines of the battle so he'd be sure to get killed. In the meantime, King David and Bathsheba, she became pregnant. And so this is what the Lord sent Nathan to say this to King David. There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from talking, from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal the traveler who had come to him to visit. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. I'd like to put this in current terms of today. There were two schools in a certain district. One had a larger enrollment and many facilities, and the other had a smaller enrollment and fewer resources. But what they didn't have, they either did without or they made it themselves. The students in the larger facility had to try out for extracurricular activities, whereas the students in the smaller facility, for the most part, were welcome to participate in anything and everything, and were thriving academically. The smaller school was like a family of several communities, desiring to make the school as self-sufficient as possible. One day, someone came to the larger school and said, "We need a new sports facility." Rather than being resourceful like the smaller facilities, they decided to close down the smaller school to get the funds necessary to build it up themselves a new facility. Please remember that athletics is for a season, academics is a lifetime. Now Matthew 13 verse 14 says this, and I truly believe it applies here. They have ears, but they don't listen. They have eyes, but they refuse to see. If their minds were not closed, they might see with their eyes, they might hear with their ears, they might understand with their minds. Then they might turn back to me and be healed. I'd like to ask yourselves, what would Jesus do? If Jesus were on the board of the school board, would he approve of threatening to close schools, thereby lowering their enrollment, and then using that fact to try to close the school? I really don't think so. Thank you for your time.
Andrea Megason. You write very small, it's a small.
I'm terrible at public speaking and public crime. Anyways, good morning. My name is Andrea Megason. I live in Goff, Kansas. I currently have 3 children. 2 are in Wetmore. My children will not attend selected schools and our school is closed. I would like a land valuation and base state aid to home my children to the school they attend. Thank you.
Rigsby Scott.
On behalf of my father, today I will let you know that me and my brother will not be attending Civil schools. My name is Rigsby Scott. I reside in Whitmore, and if you must refer to me, please refer to me as a male. If you have an issue with it, we'll discuss it on a different day because that is not the issue I have. I have a question for the Board of Education, and I want you to take it with utmost seriousness. How old do you think I am? Well, I'm 16 years old. I'm a teenager. I'm a child. But it seems that my generation, we always have to be an activist for anything we do. I should not be here. I should be going shopping like I do every Saturday morning. I shouldn't be fighting for my education. I should be deciding whether I want apple juice or orange juice this week. I arrived at this school after a very hard time, separating from one of my families. But my community and my classmates built me back up. They made sure that they knew that I knew I would be okay here. I would be strong, just like everyone else. But some people want to take that away from me, from us, from my community, and separate us out. For a track and money. How dare you? How dare you? I don't want Wetmore Academic Center to be just a place I went to, another memory. Thank you.
The answer, light razor? Sorry.
My name is Deandra Whiteheiser. I'm not just a member, I'm a student who has attended Wetmore Academic Center my whole life. It's abnormal for 8th graders to not be excited to go into high school. From my perspective, none of us 8th grade students, including myself, want our 8th grade graduation to arrive. Because none of us want to start high school in a new school that we aren't familiar with. It will make it more difficult for us to make a change into high school when we know completely no one around us and will most likely feel uncomfortable talking to other students that are strangers for help, with something that might be difficult during high school and with a friend that you have known for most of your life. Us 8th graders have spent pretty much most of our lives together, and it breaks us that we have the possibility of being separated, after we've done sports and group projects and many other extra activities, and learned about how to work with each other and trust each other over the years. It's so unbelievable how you can get so close with your classmates over the years and not notice it until you only have 4 more months together so we could possibly be separated. Yeah, we might have low enrollment, but being in a smaller school is so much better than being in a bigger school, where there's more fighting, bullying, also favoritism with students who don't have a certain last name. Here in Wetmore, if students have a problem or reported something to a teacher, they don't wait a week or even a day later to try to fix the problem. They try to resolve the problem the day of. Starting high school with teachers you already know that you can trust to go to will ease the anxiety and stress of making the transition into the high school. Unlike having no one to go to or knowing who to trust when you start in a larger school. If Wetmore does close, the only options for schools near us are larger schools, with more students, meaning more issues and bullying to happen, opposed to a smaller school where everybody knows everybody and teachers have more of a chance for one-on-one help and understanding, and could actually help students fix any problems or other educational issues like they normally have. What we have at Wetmore isn't like any other school, and all of the relationships between students and teachers being broken due to a matter of numbers, aka students. Thank you.
Andrea Lagos. And Andrea will have a maximum of 15 minutes due to the 2 donated times.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Lagos. I've been before you many times. One thing I haven't shared is that I moved away when I was 18 and I've been gone for 20 years. I've lived in 3 different states. I've lived in South America, I visited India and London, and I've seen a lot of different school systems through my volunteer efforts. A trend that we are seeing nationwide is that more and more families are turning to alternative models of education like homeschool. Why? Public education is not adequately meeting student needs across this nation. I saw this firsthand before I ever had children. So when the time came, I resigned from my job, and I have been homeschooling my children with very limited resources. Unfortunately, in today's society, it is very difficult for one-income families to make it like they used to. And so this last year, I've had to make a very difficult decision about putting my kids in school, one that I've fought for a very long time. I fought this decision, and I tried to work from home full-time and homeschool, and we got the schooling done, but the other stuff wasn't going that great. It wasn't sustainable, so I had to make a decision. The only reason that I have felt comfortable with going back to work and relying on somebody else to care for and educate my children is because I moved back to Wetmore. This is the only place where I would be comfortable sending them to public school. Maybe I'm biased, but being in the public school system for just over a month, I still have some concerns. But because of the small class sizes here and the relationships that I have with the staff at Wetmore, I am confident that any of those concerns can be alleviated through conversations. Public education is facing declining enrollment, again, all across the nation. And some of the reasons is because of conversations just like these, where dollars matter more than the actual education. The cost of education across the state and the nation is continuing to rise, both at secondary and post-secondary levels. The education institutions in this country have invested so much money in facilities, instructors, structures, and creating athletic powerhouses, while teacher pay and educational resources have fallen far behind. I am deeply concerned about what's going on at USD 113. I am deeply concerned about what's going on across the state of Kansas and across this nation. Our children are suffering. Test scores are plummeting, yet all of our policies and our programs are built around money and being the best or the biggest, having the nicest things. More and more people are rejecting this institution of education and migrating towards specific educational training they actually need and leaving all the other additional stuff behind. Sadly, USD 113 is not exempt from these trends. We see in Sabetha the private school and homeschool and people leaving our district to go to other districts. To date, this conversation about closing Wetmore has been about cost per student, financial modeling, enrollment numbers, viability formulas, a new track, land valuation dollars, with one glaring issue. The quality of education has continually been ignored. All of this talk suggests that money is the only tool that can be used to measure success. However, the value and worth of a person, of a school, of an institution, of a community cannot be measured solely in dollars and cents. Wetmore has been successfully educating students for generations. I have listened to testimonies from various Wetmore alumni over the course of the last few months, and they all say the same thing. A big factor for their success in life can be directly attributed to the education they received right here at Wetmore High School. To many of them, this becomes evident when they sit down next to their peers in their first college classes, being the only ones who know how to write a research paper, or the only ones that went to public school who can test out of remedial or introductory math courses, saving themselves lots of money. This level of academic achievement is still evident today, and it can be seen by just looking at the most recent state assessment scores. On Public School Review, Wetmore is rated in the top 20% of the state for its assessment scores. Wetmore is also rated as the #1 high school in Nemaha County for its assessment scores. What makes this so incredible is that 50% of Wetmore's student population is classified as at-risk students. Statistically speaking, at-risk kids are destined for failure, I have tutored and mentored many at-risk students who graduated from public schools, yet they were unable to successfully navigate the transition to college, and in many cases, even just an entry-level job. I have always been very frustrated that these kids did not receive the attention and the support that they needed when they were young. What Wetmore gives to its at-risk students is uncommon and uniquely valuable. Statewide at-risk students statewide at-risk students average in the bottom 20% of their state assessment test. In math, that percentage is 19%. For English language, arts, and science, it's 23%. Wetmore has been able to flip the script on this, which is evident with our test scores being in the top 20% of the state, even though 50% of our students are at risk. This is a phenomenal outcome for the student population, and every teacher and student in this building has a right to be very proud of themselves. There is another way for the district to approach the problem of declining enrollment that is before us today. Another way that does not involve shutting down a school and laying off teachers with the highest educational outcomes. Here is my rebuttal to the case for closure presented today by Mr. Evans. The LPA study from 2015 categorized potential cost-saving measures in 3 ways. Those that have a minimal impact on education, those that have a moderate impact on education, and those that have a significant impact on the quality of education. Reading through this report, and it's like 50-some pages, it appears that the district successfully implemented several of those cost-saving measures that had little to no impact on the quality of education in areas like food service, and they've done it very well. However, the board has ignored the cost-saving measures that would have a moderate impact on the quality of education and has jumped to the cost-saving measures that have the most significant impact on education, closing an entire K-12 school. Not only has this strategy jumped the line, but the board is choosing a path that disproportionately impacts the highest at-risk population group in the district. There are cost-saving options available to this district that the board has either dismissed or ignored or maybe wasn't even aware of. Conveniently, the cost-saving measures that have been ignored are all cost-saving measures within the Sabetha Middle and High School building. Whereas we now know, due to the analysis that the Wetmore team has done, that those 2 buildings, the Sabetha Middle School and Sabetha High School, also have the highest cost per student when broken out by physical building. But we don't look at the numbers that way in this district. Here are 2 examples of recommendations from that LPA study. The first was to have a moderate impact on the quality of education. It said that the district could save $85,000 to $95,000 a year by consolidating certain classes not filled to capacity in the Sabetha Middle School and High School. The LPA study noted that the Sabetha Middle School and Sabetha High School offer multiple classes that are not filled to capacity. They identified several classes offered multiple times, that means the same class offered more than once per day, with enrollments as low as 7 students per class. One example, and there are more of this, was physical education. The LPA report recommends sharing 1 PE teacher between the middle school and high school, which would reduce 1 full-time staff member's the cost of their salary and associated benefits. Since the study was done in 2015, enrollment in Sabetha Middle School and High School has declined by 32 students. However, when I went to the website to see the listing of staff members at Sabetha Middle School and High School, they now have a combined total of 3 PE teachers, 2 in the middle school with the highest cost per FTE and 1 in the high school. The second recommendation in the LPA study said the district could save $80,000 per year by closing low enrollment programs in Sabetha that could eliminate 1.5 teachers. That was the agricultural program and the family and consumer science program. The agricultural program in particular has less than 25 unique students enrolled, with 8 of its classes having less than 10 students per class. These cost-saving measures recommended not by me, but by the LPA study that was referenced earlier by Mr. Evans are just 2 examples that would negate the alleged need to close an entire K-12 school system to offset a projected $56,000 deficit. In both of these examples, 2 things are apparent to me. The actual impact to core educational experiences would be minimal. These measures would only impact a small % of the student population. And in the case of something like the agricultural program, could easily be offset by local programs such as 4-H, which are readily available in this region. The second is that the district response to the LPA study, and I encourage anybody interested, you can go online and look at this in writing, was an unwillingness to make operational changes to address budgetary concerns, unless of course it involves closing a school other than Sabetha. The legislative post-audit study recommends to close the legislative post-audit study's recommendation to close Wetmore assume two things that are not true. The first is that 50% of Wetmore students would transfer to Sabetha. That number is more like 0.04%. The cost savings of the the study also assumed that personnel costs would be eliminated, that Wetmore's personnel costs would be eliminated. Wetmore has 9 veteran teachers protected by the KNEA reduction in force clause, so that the school district would still have to pay some of the Wetmore teachers. The reality is that Sabetha stands to lose $1.7 million in revenue and still be required to retain a portion of our teachers. Based on the numbers presented today by Mr. Evans earlier, Wetmore's break-even enrollment using the 2016 formula is 135 students. His estimates for enrollment for next year are 120, but that does not account for the recruitment plan that Wetmore has implemented and is still motivated to continue implementing. We have recruited an additional 8 students that are not included in his count, and given the opportunity, we believe that our plan is feasible and it's viable and we can do better. Also, I think that we should consider that the way the district uses capital outlay money, that's our land valuation dollars, is more restrictive than the way the state regulates. Wetmore could use our capital outlay dollars to pay for some operational items, such as custodian and bus driver salaries, as a temporary, because I agree with Mr. Evans, it's not a good long-term plan, as a temporary stopgap while we work on our enrollment numbers over the next couple of years. That would add an additional $110,000 to revenue in our viability model. Last year, less than $40,000 of the approximately $140,000 of land valuation dollars that come from the Wetmore Golf area was actually used for building maintenance. I'm saying that again because that was a mouthful. Last year, there was about less than $40,000 of improvements to this building. We bring in $140,000 in land valuation revenue is what we've been told. Both Wetmore and Axtell have funds available to them that are not being allocated through the viability formula with land valuation dollars, based on how the district decides to allocate money, not by restrictions from the state. We understand that the cost per student at Wetmore is higher than the cumulative cost per student at Sabetha's elementary, middle, and high schools. But this is expected and by design. Wetmore operates a high-density at-risk building. In order for at-risk students to be successful, additional resources are needed. Education policy experts in the State Board of Education have confirmed this. That is why they designed the state funding formula to allocate additional revenue for each and every at-risk student. Last year, this equated to about $3,600 additional dollars per at-risk student, which was allocated across the entire district. This board is trying to simplify the argument by just looking at headcount. Not only is this bad math, but it fails to acknowledge the complexities of what it takes to deliver a quality education to the students who need it most. I've worked with organizations that spend a lot of money trying to help at-risk kids in the inner city. Sometimes it makes a difference, and sometimes it doesn't. But even those kids that squander every opportunity given to them, at some point in their adult lives, they look back and they remember the people who were there to help them. And they reach out and they say thank you. Wetmore is helping these students. It helped me as an at-risk student and many others who would have been marginalized in a larger school. What this board has failed to see is that the additional cost per student that it takes to serve the at-risk students in Wetmore is worth every single penny.
We have one last speaker, Annalisa, no. And you will have 17.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you guys all for being here and holding down. I'm the last speaker, so we're almost done. I know everybody would rather be super us. Okay, mic check. Ready? Okay. A wise community member pulled me aside a few weeks ago and he said, Annalisa, dear child, this conversation is not about numbers anymore. This is a battle of wills, a battle of hearts, a battle of unseen forces and things that in many ways we know nothing about. I thought about this for a long time. First I went for a long walk, then I went for a long run. But coming from where I come from and working where I work, this is a very hard thing for me to accept. The numbers don't matter. Most of you know by now, I've spent over 150 hours analyzing the district financials and learning about the public education space. I've called friends from all over the world to ask for help and guidance related to this situation. I've looked at over 30 different financial documents from the district office. I've had multiple meetings with Mr. Evans and subject matter advisors from across the public education industry, locally, regionally, and nationally. I drafted a 56-page report exploring the matter. I have lots of numbers. I have numbers which show that the district has plenty of money to continue educating the students from all 3 of its school systems. I have multiple pages of analysis which show that USD 113 is actually a very effective and a very healthy consolidated school system that could serve as a model for the state if it were willing to see itself differently. I have data which shows that Wetmore is only 5 students short of the enrollment count that it needs to achieve break-even performance. I have data to suggest that the current enrollment projections are incomplete and the recruitment strategy presented by this community is both reasonable and feasible. I have data to show that Wetmore not only serves an important purpose for at-risk students in this region, but I also have a list of reasons suggesting that it is an untapped and undervalued resource that could do even more for at-risk youth in this area if it had leadership that wanted to do so. I have numbers that show the ways in which Wetmore's attachment to Sabetha significantly reduces the state funding that our community would otherwise receive for our low enrollment and high at-risk student population. I have numbers which show that if Wetmore were able to independently determine how our land valuation revenue from our property taxes is actually being used, Mr. Evans' projections would not show a negative balance. I have numbers which show that Sabetha is unlikely to win the battle in the one school per county race, and it is short-sighted to support consolidation school trends when this is the case. I have talked to parents and families from all 3 school systems. I have pondered the questions about which students and which schools are left wanting and going without. I have looked at the trend lines and the way the money is currently being spent. I have explored the broader conversations about state force consolidations and one school per county proposals and designs. I have documented the macroeconomic forces that are at play. I've considered the state, local, and national trends related to teacher shortages, rural economic development needs, and national migration trends in the post-COVID economic landscape. I have evaluated the risks. I have considered the cost. I have thought about the complexity. I have a long list of reasons which suggest that Wetmore could both survive and thrive if it were given the power, and here's the key word, autonomy, to do so. I have a long list of reasons which demonstrate that this board accepts almost no risk by allowing Wetmore to remain open for 2 years while it pursues and tests its economic and recruitment redevelopment program. I have data which suggests that if the right leadership were in place, we would not even be having this conversation at all. I am full of financial facts and figures and numbers and ideas about how to work through all of these problems. I have all this, but still, the people, they tell me The people, they warn me. The people, they remind me. Annalisa, dear child, this conversation doesn't have anything to do with numbers. So here we are, February 4th, 10 a.m. in the Wetmore Gymnasium. There is an army of information and ideas and capable people standing in front of you, ready to face facts, ready to lead our people into the future. Here we are, standing in front of a board that can do whatever it wants, despite what the numbers or wiser counsel might say. Here we are, making our pleas to a group of elected officials who sit here today with the power to save and the power to destroy. I've spent the past 2 weeks digesting all of this information, debating with myself about what to bring to this meeting, what to say. I've looked inward, I've looked outward, I've talked to God, I've talked to family and friends, I've prayed and I've prayed and I've taken every single piece of this back to God, looking for an answer, asking for a way forward. I just keep asking myself, why is this happening? Why is this happening right here, right now, in this way? Some of you know I left home over 17 years ago. My sister who just spoke left home over 20 years ago. I'm sure everyone in this room probably has a story about how COVID changed the trajectory of their lives, but neither one of us thought that we would find ourselves back here. And certainly not now, and certainly not at the same time. I've been home for over 2 years now, and anyone who's talked to me knows that every time I've considered leaving and going back to my life, I've always felt like I was supposed to stay. The thing is, my friends don't understand, and I don't understand either. I've never really been able to explain why I'm here and why I've stayed. My sister has only been home for 1 year, but she has a very similar story. The two of us got involved in this situation back in November. And to be honest, we haven't really been getting along that well since being home, both trying to learn how to use the same bathroom again. It's been rough. She has 5 kids under the age of 9, and well, I don't. I'm a little impatient, kind of selfish. We've been tolerating each other for the past year, but honestly, we haven't really been that close like we used to be when we were kids. But all that changed in November when the school closure debate popped up. We were working to put together the first round of presentations. Andrea had done all the initial data pulls and compilation of spreadsheets, and I was just trying to catch up at the end of the week. After sifting through the slides and the data points, largely surprised by what I was seeing and what was happening before me, I said, wait. Have you tried running a profit margin calculation? What would that show? So we set up the formula, and instantly we could see how efficient Wetmore looks when you compare it to its larger peers. Wetmore has been the most profitable building in the district's portfolio in 3 out of the past 4 years. I thought to myself, wow, we did it. I mean, there's no way the conversation moves forward after seeing these numbers on paper. Feeling grateful and relieved, we both closed our laptops and we let out a deep breath. After pausing for a few minutes, she looked up at me and she said, I think I know why we're both back here right now. I looked back at her and I said, I was just thinking the same thing. Since that time, we both felt like we were here on a mission, sent by God to stand in faith and defend our people. I believe that sometimes God puts us through seasons and experiences so we can learn a certain thing or pick up a certain skill for the future, but this process has not felt like that. In many ways, it's been the exact opposite of that. The 56-page report I drafted, the analysis I used to compile it, none of this was new for me. Instead, it felt like this was the time, that this was the place that the past 10 years of my work and my life had not only equipped me for, but called me to. My sister has the same story. 5 years worth of financial statement data, education funding, budgetary line items and codes, reporting for strategic decision-making. This is the stuff that she does every day at work. So here we are, February 4th, 10 a.m. in the Wetmore Gymnasium, the strange but wonderful place where numbers don't matter. And I'm asking myself, did God really have me spend all this time and talk to all these people for nothing? Am I just supposed to give up and move on, essentially pretending that none of this ever happened? Am I to understand that this was just an exercise I was meant to perform, a blip on my radar from my 2 years in Kansas? Again, with the long walks. I can't accept this. The past 2 years of my life have taught me much about submission and obedience, and all sorts of other uncomfortable words related to accepting things that maybe we don't like too much. The 5 women who have graciously invited me into their Bible study over the past year and a half know better than anyone in this room. The very act of me coming here and staying here for the past 2 years has been a masterclass in submission and obedience for me. Now, I don't mean to suggest that I am the answer, and I don't mean to suggest that my time here has been without blessing, but more so to suggest that this time has been about something important, something that is bigger than me, something that is more important than me, something that only God could ever explain. And honestly, this whole thing with the school and the school board only further confirms for me that we are supposed to be here right now, for this moment, for this time, for this conversation. I have reason after reason and testimony after testimony to suggest that all of this is happening for a reason. And based on all the wonderful and magnificent and powerful things I've learned about the character and nature of God, I cannot accept the notion that this is a coincidence. I cannot accept the notion that this process has been for nothing. So here it is. With all of this in my heart, after all of this thinking, this is what I want to say to both the board and the community. First of all, to Mr. Evans, I am so sorry for the way that all of this has transpired. It has been stressful and unnecessary, and undue burdens have been placed on your head. There are several things that I wish we could have done differently, but thank you for handling the pressure with poise and respect. You have fielded endless questions from my sister and I over the past month, and I appreciate the diligence and transparency you brought with every single exchange. Every single exchange. I've told you before, I wish that this would have happened under different circumstances, but I want you to know, Mr. Evans, we honor you today, and I am thankful for your integrity and your diligence in handling these matters. Second, I want to say that I'm sorry to the students and the teachers and the staff who have had to carry the burden of this situation through their holidays and into the new year. I know that it has not been easy on you, and in many ways you have been left defenseless, unable to control the outcomes and unable to shield yourselves from the impending chaos that is surrounding you, even still, today. I know that it has not been easy, and I know that this process has consumed the majority of your school year. For this, students and teachers, I am sorry. If I could give this time back to you and return to you with the fresh back-to-school spirit you started the school year with, I would. I truly and genuinely and absolutely would. And finally, to the board, this is slightly more difficult for me to say, but I mean it when I say it. I am honestly very sorry for each of you as well. I'm sure any rational, semi-neutral person could agree that this whole thing never should have come to this place. We would all be much better off if we could have taken a different course. It is my hope that we can all walk away from this experience a bit more humble, more forgiving, and more careful than we walked into it. I hope that we are all willing to acknowledge the areas where we are strong and the areas where we have been weak. Willing to acknowledge the things that we got right and the things that we got wrong. Willing to move forward in a way that honors and respects where our respective communities have come from and where our respective communities want to go from here. This is the final step, final pages. I think that the Wetmore School is worth saving, but I do not think that we can or we should remain in this district. I do not know what the future holds, but I believe that we can resurrect and rebuild something here that is greater than what we had before. The things that come next may look different than what we've had in the past, but I believe that they can be exceedingly and abundantly above and beyond all we could ever ask for, hope, or imagine. I believe that some things in life are like flowers that must die to produce a seed and enable future growth, and I am willing to trust God with the process. We do not know where this is going to lead us, or who or what will change along the way, but I believe that if we step forward in faith as a united community, with pure and hopeful hearts, that God will work all of these things together for our good. Our community is tired of fighting with this board about what is and is not valuable. what is and is not right. We are ready and able to take care of our own, and the only thing that we need from this board is the freedom to do so. We are not asking you to join us. We are not asking you to support us. We are not even asking you to believe in us. The only thing that we need from this board now is time. Please, give us a year. Give us some time to make preparations and align on a path forward. Let us talk to our parents and our families about what is best for them. Let us think about how we can and should be using this building as we move forward. Let us explore the needs of our surrounding communities. Let us explore partnership opportunities and think about what is the best way forward. We are not asking you for a hand out. We are asking you to take your hands off. Please, if you have any sense of remorse or regret about the way that this has all transpired, please, please, let our people go and give us time to plan for and manage this transition. Thank you.
We would like to thank everyone for their time and attention today. Madam President, at this time, it would be recommended that the board take the information it has heard today under consideration with possible action to be taken at another scheduled board meeting. And if there are no further questions, the hearing is concluded.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion to adjourn. Kathy, Philip, second. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Adjourn.
You need help I'm doing on this?
No, I'm good.